So you want to know how to get stronger at calisthenics? Well, in today's workout, in today's show, we're going to take a deep dive into how to get stronger in calisthenics as we answer one of our loyal subscribers' questions. And more coming up. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image. We're back! How are you, folks? Okay, in case we haven't met, my name is Yanni Baumeister. This is my bro, Rad. And behind the camera, we have Richard and Kalisha making a fucking mess of it. No, I'm joking.
No, not full screen like that.
She just looked at me.
Comments on the side. Yeah.
And we're still getting organised, as it looks like. Anyway, it's Friday. It's our weekly wrap show, and we have an epic question that's come through in regards to a press handstand strength development program. And we're going to take a deep dive into calisthenic strength development, because we made some fatal errors on our journey. And anyone who follows us deeply will know that we're not absolute pros at calisthenics. We're quite new to it. We've only been practicing calisthenics for the last couple of years. But we've been doing strength and conditioning for 16 years, teaching and doing our own training for many, many years before that. So we bring a strength and conditioning background into the calisthenics realm, which a lot of our clients and members and followers and subscribers absolutely love and praise us for. Today we're talking about some breakthroughs that we've had over the last 12 months in regards to being able to calculate loading variables, intensity variables, to massively hack into how the body works and develops strength across calisthenics movements, because it's a lot harder than just choosing a lighter or a heavier set of dumbbells, barbell, or whatever else you have in the gym. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I feel awesome.
Yeah?
Ready to I like this question. I can't remember the exact question. It was about the press to handstand.
If you look in the description, one of you guys up there of this, I've put it in the description in the video down there. You want to read it out? Loud.
Here we go. Sorry, guys. We're getting the...
We're just getting the question so that we can give praise to the person.
How many reps of the pike to handstand on the ball slider is good?
How many reps?
And what was the guy's
pike
name that asked the question? He's got a weird handle. It's like, it's not a name. It's a social tag or handle. It's up the top in the start of the description, bro. Oh, there you can watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it here. It's Plain Crafty. It's from Plain Crafty, and the question is, because you wouldn't have been able to hear Richard, how many reps of the pike to handstand on the ball / slider is a good range? So if you don't know this one, it's when you start in a push-up position and you have your feet on a fit ball or on a gymnastics slider, a tumble truck slider, and you basically pull with your shoulders. So if this is your shoulders here and this is your feet here and these are your hips, you pull up like that so that you pike, okay? And he's saying how many reps.
You pull with your lats and shoulders.
Yeah. So there is compression strength as well. You also pull with your core, but it's a lot more in your shoulders. So it's a good question, and it's a question that relates to a lot of calisthenics, doesn't it? A lot of strength training. Because
absolutely.
It's something that we messed up for a long time, and we've trained with some people that are really, really good at this stuff. We've personally trained with Ido Portal, Daniel Vadnel from Fitness FAQs. We had Yuri Mamestein come in here and do some personal training with us. Or private training, I should say. Aaron McKenzie is a really good friend of ours who I go and hang out and train with a lot. And Miguel Santana as well, to name a few. So we've worked with some of the top coaches in the world, and
we are the gym that...
Something that is that we got really wrong early on in our days is the understanding of how to do the right amount of volume to make progress. And what we stuffed up, and what we see a lot of people stuffing up in calisthenics, is choosing a progression that's just too hard for you, and you can barely do one rep, and you can barely even do one rep with good technique. A really good example of this that I'm thinking of now, that I see so many people just make a dog's breakfast of it, is a handstand push-up, a wall-assisted handstand push-up. And And we were guilty of that as well.
Yeah.
You know, getting our feet up on the wall way before we were ready. And you go down and you do this horrendous banana back. And the reason why you do that banana back on a handstand push-up is because you're weaker overhead than you are horizontally, because when you do a horizontal push, you can bring the pecs into the movement. And so people, they try, and their body just naturally does this mechanical drop set where they try and arch their body to get a mechanically advantageous position where they can bring the pecs into the movement. And it just looks like absolute rubbish, and it doesn't develop into a good handstand push-up. You need, in that example, you need to be working on box headstand push-ups or pike headstand push-ups, or a lot of the progressions that we teach earlier. So to go to your question, I'll answer this question really quickly, and then we'll have a chat about how it works with calisthenics. For this question, you want to be able to doing a minimum of 3 reps with good technique. You must be able to do 3 reps with good technique of anything that you're going to do in calisthenics that's a concentric a movement, that's a full movement, that's not a hold. And the reason why you do that is because if you can't do, like 3 reps is really, for calisthenics, in our opinion, it's the minimum required rep range for you to be able to say, okay, I should be on this progression. If you're not doing 3 reps, then you're kind of just stroking your ego. It's more like just a, hey man, check this out, I can do 1 rep of this, which that's fine, you know, if you want to show what you've been able to achieve. But in terms of a workout, of, you know, you're doing 5 sets or 3 sets of something so that you can build volume and get stronger. If you can't do 3 reps with good technique, you're not doing well here. How many reps should you do? Well, that depends on what your goal is for the microcycle that you're in, or the mesocycle that you're in. If you're doing hypertrophy, you could do 8 to 10 reps of it. If you're doing good technique, you could even do up to 15. But if you're working on a strength mesocycle or microcycle, then you'll be doing, you know, between 3 and 5, or if you're a real beginner, even up to 8. And yeah, what do you think, Yanni?
Yeah, well, the only other variable that I throw in there is your training age. It depends on how long you've been specifically training in this context, you know. Like, I'm not saying if you've been a marathon runner for 25 years and then you start doing calisthenics, what you did running marathons, however good you were, is going to do nothing for your calisthenics, except maybe contribute to your leanness or body composition. Yeah. But once you start practicing calisthenics or weightlifting or whatever sort of strength training we're talking about here, you start counting the years that you've done it under real proper conditions, where you're training at a measured, tangible intensity and frequency, and you're following like proper, smart programming that's capitalizing on the concept of supercompensation. Once you've been doing that for a couple of years, you've got to take that into consideration, because your intensity levels will vary based on your experience and based on the level of intra and intermuscular coordination that's going on in your body, in your central nervous system, and all of those things. Those factors start to play a role. Doing the same rep ranges that you did at day 1 will no longer elicit the same result. And you've got to start to manipulate that, and that's what we take into consideration with our foundation movement system. You know, all of our students are they're at different stages in their training journey, and we have to take that into consideration. And that's the good thing about having a coach, I guess, you know.
And I reckon that another thing that a lot of people get wrong, that we certainly got wrong as well, is like, with calisthenics, you often, I mean, with training in general, people get bored, you know. People get bored, and that's a problem, because the truth is, to achieve the results that everybody wants, you know, everybody's looking at the YouTubers and going, I want to be able to do handstand push-ups and planches and front levers, but you don't understand the amount of repetition that goes into that stuff. Like, the average punter does not understand just how much you just grind and grind and grind at the same thing to make like a 1% increase in strength, you know. And those little 1% increases over, you know, a 5 to 10 year period turn these people into the people that everybody's looking at and going, man, I want to be like Mike, you know. And I think where a lot of people get wrong is where they do a progression and they get a decent standard at it. So they think, okay, I'm going to go to the next progression. And then they just grind away at this next progression over and over again without taking periodization into consideration, which means when you go to the next progression, you can barely do your 3 reps. Well, that's a strength progression for you.
Yeah.
And you need to periodize your rep ranges, your rest times, your tempo, your exercise selection, overload parameters, all these different things. And when you do that with smart programming, you're not always going to be doing the best progression that you can do.
Absolutely.
Not even close. And
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the biggest breakthroughs that we've had recently in the recent change that we've made in our program, where we've focused so much on volume manipulation and less on the ego training of I want to do the hardest progression I can do. And we're all getting massive gains
One of the
from
biggest things you got to understand is that not many people document the process. Especially in calisthenics, because you're just not people aren't as confident to post videos and tutorials and things like that when they're at the beginning of their journey or midway through their journey. A lot of the time it's once they've achieved, I'd say, excellence in the field of their movement practice that they start to document. And then you only see those videos and you think that that's the way you've got to train to get to that position, but it's absolutely not. One of the probably the best people I believe that I've seen in the space doing a lot of content is Dan Vadnal from Fitness FAQ. Much like us, because he's got us, I guess he's a physiotherapist, he's got a bit of a deeper knowledge than most calisthenics teachers. He does it quite well as well, and that's certainly awesome. Who's had a big influence on us. You got to take that into consideration, guys, and most of the time it's an ego-driven thing. You're wanting to do the best movements possible, but you got to make sure that you're following a proper program. Here's the thing: you don't actually have to make sure, but your fucking results come so slow.
Yeah,
it becomes almost unbearable, man. Frustrating and almost unbearable, because calisthenics is a game of millimeters at the best of times, and it's not as tangible as weightlifting. Because weightlifting, you see the numbers going up, and it's quite rewarding and fulfilling. But with calisthenics, you're busting over a few seconds of a hold or a few millimeters of a lean, or a few inches of extending your legs to increase the leverage to make it harder to get closer to that front lever or closer to that planche. And it becomes really, really frustrating if you're not following a good program and utilizing the best of the way the body works and adapts to stimulus.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, I remember, I have to go back such a long time to think about, to try to remember when I didn't understand programming and things like that, because we've been personal trainers for 16 years. But I do remember when we used to train, and this is before YouTube, I'm 41 in a couple of months. Yeah. So when Yanni and I started our training journey before we were personal trainers, there was no YouTube. It was so hard to come across good information. Yeah. And I remember trying to put things together, trying to figure out the pieces of the puzzle without having a teacher there. And when I think back of so much effort, so much time invested in training and just achieving so little, So, and we see it now, even with YouTube, we see it still all the time when people come in the doors and they've done calisthenics for 2 or 3 years on their own. But the reason why they're coming to us is because they've hit that glass ceiling and they can't go any further on their own. And they're strong people. And when they come in here, you see the look on their face when you explain to them how one of the reasons why they can't do a handstand is because their shoulder flexion only allows them to go to here. And they had no idea on how to get their shoulder flexion, how to increase it. And when you explain to them the amount of time that it's going to take, because not only have they not been working on shoulder flexion, but they've been working on becoming extremely strong right here by focusing on things like planches and levers. Yeah. So they've really solidified in their nervous system that this is where my arms go. My arms don't go here. Yeah. And the look on their face when you explain to them the amount of work that's going to be required to and that's one example of a bad habit that gets created with people. And it all just comes down to you have to understand the whole big picture of it, don't you? Yeah. There's so much going on with calisthenics and strength training and mobility in general. And one of the things that a lot of the guys in our movement mastermind are saying that have done multiple online programs with calisthenics legends is that they don't teach you anything about flexibility and mobility.
Yeah.
Mm.
And a lot of the guys are woeful at it. I've seen guys that are amazing at planches and muscle ups and all of the bar stuff, but when you put them on the floor, they're fucking useless.
Yeah.
You know, they can't do a
Can't
press
touch their
handstand.
toes
They
or,
can't. You know, they're just not very flexible. They've just honed in on the bar stars.
Yeah, the
skills,
bar style training, yeah.
And they look amazing when they're doing that sort of stuff. But then when you get them down to try and do anything on the floor or anything graceful, it's just woeful.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. So like if we bring this in for a landing from based on this question, I'm just looking at the time here.
Yeah.
So things to take away from this that honestly have had some of the biggest impact on our training in the last 6 months, I'd even say, when we've made some big changes to the way we do things here, is to understand how to use periodization, and that in the very, very least, at the most basic level of periodization, you should be writing programs for yourself that go for between 4 and 8 weeks, and you should be doing strength phases and hypertrophy phase. And a strength phase means that you do a higher intensity variation of an exercise, something that's harder to do, that has more of a demand on the body. So these are the harder progressions that you'll be doing, but lower hold times or lower reps. And generally speaking, the rep ranges that you do for strength training, this depends on your training age, meaning how much are you a beginner or how advanced are you. It's between 1 to 8 is the rep range that's widely accepted as a strength training rep range. And if you're doing an isometric hold, it's 2 seconds of isometric hold time per 1 rep. So you'd be looking at between a 2 and 16 second hold time. And then if it's a hypertrophy, you're looking at between 5 and 15 reps for a rep range. Again, depending on your training age that you're doing, which means that if it's a hold time, you're looking at between 10 and 30 seconds hold time. And at the most basic level of training, you should be periodizing between strength and hypertrophy. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And guys, you don't know what you don't know. Get a good program, you know, and if you don't think that the program is periodizing well, it's not capitalizing on supercompensation. Here's a tip. If you bought a program off someone and they haven't mentioned the concept of supercompensation, I'd probably throw the thing in the bin.
Yeah.
That's the whole concept of a program,
yeah.
is to capitalize on supercompensation, and they should educate you on that as well. You know,
yeah.
There are systems and adaptation processes in the body that we're trying to utilize when we write and design programs. And the guys that you buy programs off, a lot of the time will just be replicating what they've done. They got no idea why it worked for them. They just put it together in a workout and go, here's your program and here's a little nutrition plan to follow.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you're getting the full picture so that you can educate yourself, so you're not, you know, dependent on trying the next best thing every few months because that last thing didn't really produce a result.
Yeah, and then the other thing is as well, something that we say all the time, when you're a beginner, you'll get gains from doing anything. If it involves strength, you'll get gains. And so if you're sitting here kind of nodding your head going, yeah, man, I got so strong at the start of my journey, in the last 6 months or a year, I haven't gotten better at all. It's because when you start, you don't need a program at all.
Yeah.
Like you just...
The adaptation occurs from frequency and consistency, not intensity.
Not
and volume in the start.
And not programming.
Yep.
But once you get past that honeymoon phase, which for the average punter would be between 6 months to a year, the only way to get better is through very good
programming. I reckon 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months, you reckon? Yeah,
3 to 6 months. If you're consistent and you really go for it, 3 to 6 months, in that initial 3 to 6 months, you will see up to a 30% increase in performance. That's totally normal. That's just your body adapting to new stimulus, a new type of exercise, a new frequency of exercise. And then after that, you'll hit a plateau and you'll need to start using smart programming.
Awesome.
Cool, guys.
That's it for us for this week. So, yeah,
yep.
we'll be
Friday
back next week.
Keep
the questions coming in. That was a really good question.
Keep an eye out for our 2 exercise tutorials. They're going to go live first thing Monday morning. What are we publishing this week, Kalisha?
Barbell rack pulls.
Barbell rack pulls.
And the tuck lever.
Awesome, and the tuck lever. So these are 2 big movements. Barbell rack pulls are really great for developing overall strength, mostly in the upper body, especially your upper back, traps, shoulders.
And it's the first time that we start using barbells in the FMS.
Yeah.
It's the first time that we actually grab barbells after the conditioning phase.
That's in our progression, not the first time for us. It's in our progressions program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a beginner, yeah. So it's a really awesome exercise.
They're not.
Yeah.
It's not the workouts that are going live. It's just the tutorials,
No, just the
exercise
tutorial,
tutorials.
Yeah. Awesome. Have a great
Cool, guys.
weekend, everyone.
Have a great
See you soon.
weekend. See you soon. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.